Hello, I'm David Breeden. I'm the senior minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, a historically humanist congregation, and this is Coffee and Wisdom. We're starting a new theme this week called Dancing in the Chapel Perilous. What is that? This is a series of images that occur in literature, but they become psychological images that are then in some way embedded in talking about how the human mind works. The Chapel Perilous being one of the older ones that occurs back in the 1400s. So we'll take a peek at that first. Here's something you can find on the internet. Lumi says, buy my Chapel Perilous insurance. It insures against unsightly psychic scars, character re-armoring, reality tunnel superfluity, involuntary free association, fraudulent insurance, and excessive fenors. Fenor should give you a clue. Those of you who were joining in when I was talking about religions that are maybe kind of joking, and there is one called Discordianism, and indeed Fenors occur in Discordianism. A Fenord is a word that makes you forget that you've ever seen that word. So something is up with this, but we'll have to wait to see where it goes. But we do have a definition of what Chapel Perilous means. As a matter of fact, Chapel Perilous is an occult term referring to a psychological state in which an individual cannot be certain whether they have been aided or hindered by some force outside the realm of the natural world, or whether what happened to be appeared to be supernatural inference was a product of their own vivid imagination. So it's a moment at which we reach this point and say, wait a minute, was that supernatural, or is that just a product of my own imagination? And so you can see how the chapel idea could be wrapped up in some other kinds of ideas that then become, Dan Brownish in some way, but we'll have to wait and see about that. But there we got all this occult stuff going on, and then there's Sir Lancelot and the witch Heloise. That doesn't look very scary, does it? And of course, the Chapel Perilous is part of the Grail legend, the Holy Grail. That's not scary, and that's not a cult, or is it? And that's what we need to look at this week. Now, Chapel Perilous as a term first appears in Le Morte d'Arthur, written and compiled by Sir Thomas Malory, and it was published by London's first printer, William Caxton, in 1485. Did the image exist in earlier manuscripts? We really don't know. Thomas Malory, the author, is very upfront about the fact that he is looking at manuscripts that came out of older traditions, most of them from France. And so it could be that the Chapel Perilous exists somewhere else, and he did get it, but we don't know that because we don't know any other sources that still exist, although they may have been around in 1485. Now, who was Sir Thomas Malory? There are several candidates for him. There were several Sir Thomas Malorys living at that time, but the most likely candidate is a guy who lived from 1415 to 1471. So right in that time period, he fought on both sides of the War of the Roses, and he was imprisoned at Newgate Prison in London. Therefore, we know that this author is writing out of the prison. He says so. Caxton says so. So this is probably the guy, although we really don't know. He was a member of Parliament at one time, again, going back and forth during this civil war that's going on. And this is the height of what we think of as knights in shining armor. The suits of armor had become what we think of in terms of the cliche by this time period. So it could be this is the guy. Malory originally titled his work, The Whole Book of King Arthur and His Noble Knights of the Round Table. But Caxton didn't like that title, and he changed it to The Death of Arthur, Le Morte d'Arthur. It was a compilation of, apparently, of French and English Arthurian tales. Some things are definitely out of manuscripts that still exist. Other things are not. Here we have a contemporary illumination from the time. And as you see, we've got these very good Knights of the Round Table circling around this glowing, yeah, what is it? Yes, this magical instrument that's going to become very much a part of the Arthurian legends. Well, the book was a smashing success in its time. The Great Hall of Winchester Castle in England today, in the city of Winchester. If you look down the hall there, you will see this big round thing on the wall. Here's a close-up of it. This is the King Arthur's tabletop. Oh, no, it's not. It's a fake from the late 1300s. So that's how popular it was. We have fakes of the Round Table all the way back to the publication of the book. How Sir Lancelot came to the Chapel Perilous and gat him there a dead corpse, a piece of the cloth, and a sword is the chapter in the Morte d'Arthur that does contain this particular little bit. It's not very big, and as you will see, Malory was very much an understated writer, and there's a lot of argument. Well, was this guy even any good? Is he just taking these things and throwing them on the page? Or is this really something of a masterful work? That's highly debatable, but we have a chapter. And as you see, the chapter heading tells us exactly what's going to go on. Spoiler alert from the very beginning of the chapter, no real tension going on there. But this is from Le Morte d'Arthur. The spelling has been updated, but the language as it was being used, this is late Middle English going into modern English. So it sounds a bit like Shakespeare, but it's a little bit earlier than that. Right, so Sir Launcelot departed, and when he came unto the Chapel Perilous, he alighted down and tied his horse unto a little gate. And as soon as he was within the churchyard, he saw on the front of the chapel many fair, rich shields turned up so down. And many of the shields Sir Lancelot had seen knights bear beforehand. This is very scary. We ride up to this chapel, and by golly, the shields are turned upside down. That means that the knights who owned them have been killed in combat. This is a collection of trophies of the knights that have been killed by somebody around this chapel. With that, he saw by him there stand 30 great knights, more by a yard than any man that ever he had seen. And all those grinned and gnashed at Sir Lancelot. And when he saw their countenance, he dreaded him sore, and so put his shield afore him, and took his sword ready in his hand, ready unto battle. And they were all armed in black harness, ready with their shields and their swords drawn. And when Sir Lancelot would have gone throughout them, they scattered on every side of him and gave him the way. And therewith he waxed all bold and entered into the chapel. And then he saw no light but a dim lamp burning. And then was he ware of a corpse hilled on a cloth of silk. Again, this could be a very dramatic moment in the story, but it's really not. Here he faces down 30 dead knights and boldly goes to fight them. But it's really very, very understated. And this is the way that Malory tells the story. Sir Lancelot stooped down and cut a yard. Then any man that he ever seen, whoop, 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 whoop. So we see the illustration here on the right. This is from a Victorian era retelling of the story. This becomes very, very popular. It's all the way down to our own time. Then Sir Lancelot stooped down and cut a piece away of that cloth, and then it fared under him as the earth had quaked a little. So there's an earthquake, by golly. Therewithal, he feared. And then he saw a fair sword lie by the dead knight, and that he gat in his hand and hied him out of the chapel. So he takes a piece of the cloth. This is his quest. And then he takes a sword and gets out of there. Anon, as ever he was in the chapel yard, all the knights spake to him with a grimly voice, and said, Knight, Sir Launcelot, lay that sword from thee, or else thou shalt die. Whether that I live or die, said Sir Launcelot, with no great word, get ye it again, therefore fight for it an ye list. Again, we don't have the contemporary way that we do quotations, and that can be very disturbing if you're accustomed to seeing quotation marks as explaining who's talking along the way, or paragraph markers to tell us who's talking. You get accustomed to it after you've read this for a while. However, so the knights that are outside, the dead ones, then say, lose that sword, you're going to be dead if you don't. But Sir Launcelot says, I'm not listening to you guys, you're dead. Then right so he passed throughout them, and beyond the chapel yard there met him a fair damsel. Okay, how many fair damsels are we going to meet? And said, Sir Launcelot, the fair damsel, says Sir Launcelot, leave that sword behind thee, or thou wilt die for it. I leave it not, said Sir Launcelot, for no treaties. That would be the word entreaties later on in English. No, said she, and thou didst leave that sword, Queen Guinevere should thou never see. So as soon as he says no, she says, oh, well, guess what? If you had said yes, you would never have seen the queen again. Again, no buildup, but this just happens. Then were I a fool, and I would leave this sword, said Launcelot. If I would be a fool if I left this sword. Now, gentle knight, said the damsel, I require thee to kiss me but once. Nay, said Sir Launcelot, that God me forbid. Well, sir, said she, and thou hast kissed me, thy life days had been done. You'd be dead by now. But now, alas, she said, I have lost all my labor, for I ordained this chapel for thy sake and for Sir Gawain. Sir Gawain being the other shining knight of the Round Table. Sir Gawain, I have the picture that appears on his helmet and on his shield. He is the Knight of Pentacles. That also appears in tarot cards. That was his sign, and that's what kept him safe from all kinds of spells as he fought various kinds of demons and such. And once I had Sir Gawain within me, and at that time he fought with that knight that lieth there dead in yonder chapel, Sir Gilbert the Bastard. And at that time he smote the left hand off Sir Gilbert the Bastard. And Sir Launcelot, now I tell thee, I have loved thee this 7 year, but there may no woman have thy love but Queen Guinevere. But sithen I may not rejoice thee to have thy body alive, I have kept no more joy in this world but to have thy body dead. So the witch has fallen, and we will find out very soon who she is, had fell in love with them and laid this kind of trap to get him. Then another fair damsel had asked him to go do this to heal her brother. And the plot thickens as we go along. And as we know, Queen Guinevere figures into other of the Arthurian legends. They later have an adulterous affair that does destroy a fair Camelot. So that's part of the plot that's going on here. Mallory may have been the first to conflate these different legends into some kind of a whole. We really don't know that because, again, many of the French originals have probably disappeared. Then would I have blamed it and served it, and so have kept it my life days, and daily I should have clipped thee and kissed thee. This is, again, the witch speaking, or the sorceress. Clipped is an older English word that means hug or clipped. We still use the word clip, a kind of a tweezer effect here. And kiss thee in despite of Queen Guinevere, if you'd gone along with me. Ye say well, said Sir Launcelot. Jesu preserve from your subtle crafts. And therewithal he took his horse and so departed from her. And as the book saith, when Sir Lancelot was departed, she took such sorrow that she died within a 14 night, and her name was Heloise, the sorceress. We don't even learn who it was until after the story has been told. A couple of things that are going on here. As the book saith, is a motif within the writing of Sir Thomas Malory. He's not claiming to write this. As a matter of fact, in the 1400s, Chaucer did the same thing. It's a bad form to be making stuff up. You want it to be actually based on something that's older so that there's some authority to it. Do notice 14 night, this becomes fortnight in British English, did not come to the with the settlers into the US, and we no longer use the term 14 night, 2 weeks in other words, and her name was Heloise, the sorceress. And there's a cover from one of the books of Mort Darthur saying goodbye to that magical sword as it sinks back into the lake much later in the book. But we have several motifs going on here that do become these ideas for how the human mind works. The Chapel Perilous, and we'll get more to that tomorrow as it goes into this occult idea of this dangerous crossroads where we have to make a decision and we don't really know if it's haunted, supernatural, our own minds playing tricks on us, and that kind of thing. This often happens within Arthurian legends as we go along. Thanks a lot for joining in today. And this week, we will have Bibles and Beer at 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. This week, we'll have Joseph the Trickster, in which we go on to look at more of the story of Joseph in Egypt. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with some more motifs and dancing in the Chapel Perilous tomorrow. Thank you.